Hi everybody, we're going to be looking at some more advanced namespace stuff in this video, so let's get into it. I've already written some code just to make this video go by a little bit faster, so you can feel free to pause. We're still going to be writing some code though. Basically, the first thing that I want to show is that with an inner class, if you were, say, want to inherit that, we can just refer to this outer class directly. So we don't have to specify that this is technically in a different namespace because this inner namespace is nested within it. But if these namespaces were to be different, other namespace, let's do that. So we're doing that, and then we're going to move this class into here. So now we're going to get an error because these are two different namespaces within this outer namespace. So what we have to do to get this working is to use this other namespace reference. So we don't have to go all the way out to outer, but since these guys are both in the same namespace holder of this outer name, we can just refer to this namespace directly and then get access to the class. If you were to have a class that was in an outer namespace and then in an inner namespace, when you refer to this, when we actually refer to this outer class, say outer class, which one? Just randomly create something, right? It's going to be pulling from the innermost thing. So the most direct reference to that class will always be the one that it takes. So this is the inner outer class. And then if we wanted to get the outer class that's not in this namespace, but it's actually in the outer namespace, then we can do that using the outer class. Okay, outer is looking really weird to me. So this is the outer class. Biggest thing to note is that the closest one in terms of scope will always be the one that's referenced and not the outer one. You have to specify if you want something that's farther out of context. Alright, so I'm going to go delete some of this code and do this. We're going to remove that inheritance. We're going to remove that. Clean up this code a little bit. So now that I have this namespace outer.inner, I'm going to go ahead and copy it with Control D. And then, as you sort of expect, we're getting an error that says this the namespace outer.inner already contains a definition for inner class. So the thing is, if you're using the same namespace name, you can't have two things that conflict name-wise. But if we were to change this name to inner class 2, there's absolutely no problem. We're doing great work here. So the rule is you can't have names that conflict, but you can actually create two different namespace instances, I guess, or containers that have the same name, but they can't have the same class names. So I'm going to go ahead and change the name of these guys to inner, and then again I'm going to copy this, change the name of this guy to other, and so we can actually import these namespaces. So I'll import outer. And again, we can show our inheritance off, do inner class, right? And since we're importing this namespace, totally fine. It works great. But if we try to do the same thing here, inner class, it won't work. It does not know that this namespace outer thing is a thing. Let's see if we can try. Yes, so we can either use this using importer, or we can actually reference this using the full namespace name and then dot and then the class name. And we can actually assign aliases or different names to namespaces, which is pretty cool. So if I just want to have this as O, I can say O equals outer. But when you do use these aliases, you have to actually specify where this is coming from. Now, you don't really want to use aliases all that often. It looks like it's only for name conflicts. So that way, when you're importing different things, the names don't conflict. This is basically the reason that you use it, because obviously you'd rather just use outer you know, and not have to specify where you're getting this from. And this is just easier and cleaner. So aliases are just used if you have a name conflict with namespace importing. And that's it for this video.